This is the brand new M4 iPad Pro, and it does all the iPad things, just slightly better. It plays games, it shows you videos, it allows you to be creative in many different ways with all the limitations of other iPads. And that's okay because we all know what iPads can and can't do at this point. We know they're not Macs, and we know that most Pro apps are not going to work the same on iPad as they do on a regular desktop OS. But new hardware is great, and if you want the absolute best iPad you can get, this is it. I've been using this new iPad for the last few weeks. So let's go over what I see as the 5 great updates to the new iPad Pro and 1 downgrade. When it comes to the design, the new 13-inch M4 iPad Pro has been working out. Its waist is trimmer. It's about 100 grams lighter than the previous iPad Pro, and you notice it right away. It's so crazy thin to hold in your hands, and it feels lighter than it should. At 5.1 millimeters thin and barely thicker than the USB-C port, it almost feels like a novelty, or that we've arrived in the future. It's barely thicker than the display on my 14-inch MacBook Pro, but it's a full computing device. The new space black color option looks really good in my opinion, and I feel like it's even better than the space black on the MacBook Pro somehow. But it does still show more fingerprints than the silver models. Around the edges, you're going to get the buttons in all the usual places, along with the 4 speaker grills, which I'll get into in a moment. It's hard not to be impressed with the iPad Pro design overall. As a tech nerd, I mean, what's not to like? I think that the obvious headlining feature of the new iPad Pro is the tandem OLED display. As others have pointed out, this is just about the best, most color-accurate consumer display you can get, and you notice immediately. The display can get up to 1,000 nits of peak brightness sustained, edge to edge. That's more than 5.5 million pixels all lit up. Well, actually, I guess that's more than 11 million pixels because of the tandem OLED display that stacks 2 OLED panels right on top of each other, which allows for up to 1,600 nits of peak brightness with HDR. For comparison, the MacBook Air peak brightness is 500 nits, and many desktop displays are around 300 to 400 nits. That means that this thing is usable outdoors or in very bright rooms. I've had no issues browsing and reading articles on this no matter where I sit. It also means that HDR movies just pop, even compared to the mini LED on the previous iPad Pro or the MacBook Pro. I found myself just backing up on certain scenes of movies and just looking at the contrast differences in awe. Just look at the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie, where you get the super bright lights of the plasma beams or whatever they are, compared to the blackness of the night. It's incredible. And I know there's been some complaints about some visual noise with the display in certain situations, but this is not something that I've come across or have noticed in my usage. I simply love this display, and I can't wait for it to come to the MacBooks and desktop displays. This new tech, along with ProMotion variable refresh rate, makes this simply the best display I've ever seen. Now, I do want to talk about the new camera placement next, but first I want to thank today's sponsor, Ugreen. This is the Ugreen 2-in-1 magnetic foldable charging station, and it can deliver up to 15 watts of wireless charging for your iPhone and other Qi 2 powered devices. That's double the speed of regular wireless chargers. Plus, you can also charge your AirPods at up to 5 watts with the built-in cradle, and with the additional USB-C port, you can even charge an Apple Watch. This tiny, portable, and powerful Qi 2 certified charger weighs just 7.5 ounces and has a footprint that is barely bigger than the AirPods Pro case, making it perfect for home or on the go. This 2-in-1 charger easily unfolds into a sleek, adjustable charging stand for your iPhone with really strong magnets that means your iPhone will stay put. Plus, you get all the safety protection you expect from Ugreen, like overvoltage, overcurrent, overheat, and short circuit protection. So if you want to pick up the new Ugreen 2-in-1 magnetic folding charging station today, you can save by using the links and codes in the description below. And my thanks to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. So moving on to the periphery of the display. The FaceTime camera has finally moved to the landscape side of the iPad, making for a much better video calling experience. I frequently use my iPad for video calls instead of my Mac because I find that the picture is better overall, except for the dumb fact that you always look like you're looking away from the camera with the previous iPads. Now, everything just looks more natural in frame, like you're actually talking to the person on the other side. Personally, I'm almost always using my iPad in landscape orientation in a case or a stand or even the Magic Keyboard, so it makes perfect sense to move the camera to the long side of the iPad, especially with the larger iPad. Why especially? I don't know, I just said it. But now let's go ahead and move to the inside and talk about the brand new processor found only inside the new iPad Pro. For now, the M4 chip is a 9 or 10 core processor with a 10 core GPU, depending on which storage option you choose. If you choose the 256 or 512 gig model, you get the 9 core CPU with 3 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. If you choose the 1 or 2 terabyte option, you get 4 performance cores, along with a bump from 8GB of RAM to 16. Looking at GFX Bench to get an idea of performance, the 9-core iPad Pro scored 46 frames per second compared to 48 frames for the 10-core CPU. This is basically on par with the 15-inch MacBook Air with an 8-core CPU and 10-core GPU, and about 50% faster than the M1 iPad Pro. With Geekbench 6 single-core tests, we can see that the M4 is about 20% faster than the M3 MacBook Air and about 55% faster than the M1 iPad Pro. With multi-core, the M4 is about 12% faster than the M3 MacBook Air, and the higher tier M4 iPad Pro is about 10% faster in multi-core compared to the base storage tiers. Now the real question is, what can you do with all of that power in an iPad? I didn't notice anything dramatic in speed differences between the M1 and the M4 iPad Pro. Maybe games open just a slight bit faster compared to the older versions. Maybe you get some benefit of ray tracing on certain games because of the M4, but otherwise the performance feels basically the same in regular everyday tasks between my M1 and M4 iPad Pro. And the fifth main upgrade for the iPad Pro this year is actually the accessories. Well, for me, it's actually the Magic Keyboard. There is a new Apple Pencil Pro for the new iPad Pro that has some really cool new features like squeezing to bring up tools, a gyro for barrel rolling to change the shapes of brushes, and cute little animated shadows that look like the brush or tool you selected. The new Apple Pencil Pro looks like a really nice upgrade. Honestly, though, I just don't use it. I'm not an artist and I don't take handwritten notes, so I have one and I'll probably play with it and see how it works, but not enough to give you my opinion. The Magic Keyboard, on the other hand, I use probably 90% of the time when I'm using an iPad. And this year, there are a couple of great upgrades to the original design that I like. First, we now have an aluminum keyboard deck that should hold up much better over time compared to the rubbery material on the previous version. That material gets worn and it absorbs dirt and oils over time and starts to look dingy and gross. The aluminum inside will definitely wear better now, but it's unfortunate that the exterior of the Magic Keyboard does still retain that same rubbery material. The trackpad and palm rests are larger, which makes it more comfortable to lay your hands on when typing. The trackpad's also much larger than the previous version, leaving plenty of room for 3-finger swipes and 2-finger scrolls and changing apps with the app switcher and anything else you need to do on the trackpad. I love that Apple changed the trackpads to the haptic touch trackpads found on MacBooks. This means that the button clicks don't actually move a physical switch to activate the click, but rather it senses pressure and a vibration motor tricks you into thinking that you clicked a real button. This makes the clicks quieter and easier to push. The other welcome change to the keyboard was the addition of the function key row at the top. That finally gives us easy access to changing screen brightness, volume, media controls, and more. This makes the simple things of using an iPad with a keyboard, like changing volume or hitting pause, so much nicer. I would prefer to see keyboard brightness controls on here as well, and would happily give up the app switcher and the Siri button to get that. Now there is one negative to the design of the new Magic Keyboard, and that is the new cantilever hinge that allows the iPad to actually sit further back, giving us a bigger trackpad and a function key row. This now makes the iPad even more top-heavy and susceptible to falling backwards. This is most evident when using it on your lap, and unless you keep one hand on the Magic Keyboard at all times, you're bound to see your beautiful new device topple over backwards. Even on a desk, when it's pushed all the way back, it is more susceptible to rocking when touching the display because the back hinge just is no longer covered in the rubbery external material, which does actually give the previous version a little more stability. But overall, I'm glad Apple treated the new Magic Keyboard with some nice upgrades, but I am hoping for more on the next version. So those are the 5 main upgrades to the new M4 iPad Pro, and I mentioned that there was downgrade. By making the iPad thinner, as they did, this reduces the amount of space inside the iPad, which can negatively affect things that are, by, physics, better with more volume. The speakers. The speakers on the 13-inch M4 iPad Pro are a noticeable downgrade from the speakers on the M1 and M2 Pro. I heard it right away. There is definitely less bass with the restricted amount of physical volume in this, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the overall range is reduced as well. If you pick up the iPad Pro while playing music or movies, you can feel the speakers doing their thing, but they're just missing some oomph. Not only that, the actual volume is reduced as well. Comparing them side by side, I saw about a 2 dB max difference between the new and the old iPad Pro when listening to the same source. This isn't enough to not recommend buying the new M4 iPad Pro or anything, but something I noticed and I was disappointed by. In the name of making this as thin a device as possible, Apple had to remove something that was taking up that space. And if I had Tim Cook's ear, I would actually question why the iPad Pro had to be thinner at all if there was a sacrifice in audio quality or even the ability to get more than 10 hours of battery. which is what the original iPad had back in 2010. I would prefer a device just as thick as the previous versions if it meant no downgrades at all and maybe some added benefits like more battery. For better or worse, this iPad will only do iPad things with the same restrictions and limitations of every other iPad, but you might enjoy doing those things more on top tier hardware. For me, my days of trying to make my iPad my everything computer are probably over. But when I travel, the iPad things make it an indispensable item in my bag. And now it'll be slightly faster and better looking when I do use it. I'm gonna have more to say on iPad soon, but for now, what do you guys think of the new M4 iPad Pro? Is there anything else hardware-wise that you would want to see in it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're debating between the iPad Magic Keyboard and the Logitech Combo Touch, definitely check out this video right over here. It'll help. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, hit subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.